for part C, when you are finding the zeros, again, the first thing you want to do is think about what's possible. That's going to be really short for C. Okay, so yeah, you can also factor by grouping. Does some of you do that? Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so a lot of us do start with the P over Q. This is just going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2. Okay, and then when you graph, what is your intercept? What was the x-intercept that you guys found? Okay, so yep, and this is, yeah, it's -1. Again, this is one I would verify with my table. And yep, at -1 I'm 0, so I'm good. That's my x-intercept. Okay, so again, this is x cubed, so how many times will you have to do synthetic division? Just once. Okay, so drop down the 1. -1 will be 0. This will be 0. -2. This will be +2. Yay. So this is x squared, x, and your number. This is another one where you have x squared minus 2 equals 0, so you just have to add 2 to both sides. X squared equals 2, so take the square root, and then x equals plus or minus root 2. Okay, so your 3 zeros are -1, and then plus or minus root 2. Good. And then some of you factored by grouping, and you can absolutely do that as well. You get the same thing. You'll end up with x squared equals 0, and then x plus 1 equals 0. Now for D, your P over Q is the same. It's -2, right? So it's plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, except when you go to find the x-intercept, what's the problem? Yeah, you don't have any that, you don't have 1 or -1 or 2 or -2. And those are the only possible rational zeros in this case. So if you get stuck like that, then the next step is going to be to factor, because these are not your zeros. You can check with the table. Are -1 and -2 zeros? No, they don't have 0 for the y. Okay? None that are rational. So we have to factor. Factor. So if I have x to the 4th minus x squared minus 2, I'm going to make my 2 parentheses. What multiplies to x to the 4th? X squared and x squared. Then I ask myself, what multiplies to -2 but adds to -1? A -2 and a +1. -2 plus 1 is -1. Okay, and then don't forget, you have to set these each one equal to 0. Okay, again, sometimes when we're going fast, we forget that. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. X squared equals 2. Take the square root. X equals plus or minus root 2. And then for this one, you have a negative. If you take the square root of a negative, what has to be in your final answer? I. Now, some people put plus or minus I root 1. What's the square root of 1, though? 1. So this is plus or minus I. Okay, so your 4 zeros are plus or minus root 2, and they are plus or minus I. Okay, so you do have to simplify that part. You do have to simplify the square root. Okay? All right. All right, that's it for the zero.